Well, good afternoon. I know it's been a little while. I have been trying, well, I have been. I've been working through these two freaking concurrent diseases and, the autoimmune disorder, which was the one that really is the meat and potatoes because this hand really has suffered. I've had problems with grip strength. I'm, ultimately going to post certify again in duty pistol as well as the others. It might be 6, 8 months down the road that's going to happen. Uh, a question was asked of me, and I'm 53, was what would you do or what advice would I give to somebody that wanted to join one of the uniformed services? That's Coast Guard and Space Force too. But traditionally we think Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard. And I can tell you that, of course, I joined the Navy and was a part of the Navy and the Naval Reserve. And one of the top bits of advice I can give you is physical fitness. You go in being as physically fit as you possibly can be. Now, not what you think you need to be, but as physically fit as you possibly can be. Because if you cut an image of a physically fit young person, immediately the attention of your drill instructors will be diverted away from you into somebody that is less physically fit. And when the time comes when you're getting mashed in the pit, because it's going to happen, then you want to basically be a piece of shoe leather mentally. Mentally, you have to commit yourself to it. When you go to MEPS and you get on that plane or that bus and you go to wherever you're going to go for boot camp or basic training, I guess, for the others, is you have to commit to finishing it, because you're going to get in there and for the first 48 hours to a week, it's going to be, what have I done? I made a tremendous mistake and I need to get the hell out of here. And if you go to Great Lakes like I did in January for boot camp, and all you're thinking about is that train, that commuter train that runs next to boot camp and RTC, and it's like, you know what? The thing's doing like 70 miles an hour. If only I could hop on that thing, everything would be okay. Understand that bad times never last, and it takes time for the team, it takes time for the company or division to come together and coalesce as a team. And then the only way that can happen is through a degree of negative reinforcement in the beginning, which is to correct you from your individualistic behavior, to come into concert with your shipmates, your teammates. And then in the end, you emerge on graduation day, which is one of the most unbelievably fantastic days of a young recruit's life. It's amazing. All right, let's fast forward. You, in the case of the Navy, have a guaranteed A school. And I did. And that was cryptologic tech or cryptology. And I knew just from the little bits and pieces, because my recruiter knew nothing about what it was. In fact, when I took the ASVAB, I wanted to be a construction mechanic, because as you can see, I have been a mechanic all my life, and I was at the time, and I wanted to be a CB construction mechanic. I wanted to join the Navy, but I wanted to be a CB mechanic. So, of course, the recruiter's like, yeah, take the ASVAB, and like 2 days later, I get a phone call. He's like, good news, Lance. I can get you into nuclear technology or cryptology. Take your pick. And I said, what about construction mechanics? Oh, no, it's overmanned. Dude, forget about that. It's overmanned. Suffice to say, after I graduated A school, the recruiter, he called me and he said he was meritoriously promoted to first class. I wonder why. But A school is tough. It's at Corey Station, which is in Pensacola, Florida. I didn't have any problems with it. We washed about 50% of our class, from what I was told by our instructors. And our instructor, our lead instructor, was a first class petty officer by the name of Pelser Clare. And his name tag actually had Terminator, because his name was Jerry. Jerry was, he was a consummate professional. He was an excellent instructor, but he understood the gravity of this skill set and how you depending on the OJT side of the house, if you became an operator or if you went over into the research side, it didn't matter, because the picture that you helped create for the consumers up the chain of command, all the way up to the top, had to be accurate so they could make timely decisions. And that's a heavy burden if you're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. So you have to be ready to follow through with that. Don't quit or give up. The good news about, and this is back in the day, good news about boot camp or A school was we didn't have a whole lot of time for PT. So we would self-motivate with PT. And I had a couple of good friends, and we had 2 Marines in our cadre as well. And so we got to get some good PT in. But if you're not careful, you're going to start to gain weight because the food at the chow hall was really good. And they used to have every day. They used to have spicy chicken sandwiches that were like Popeye's fried chicken grade, and they had the like the ice cream nutter butter thing. So, I mean, you would just get a chicken sandwich fry. I mean, if you weren't being governed by your own good sensibilities, it was chicken sandwich loaded up with mayo, and you're dipping your fries in ranch, and you're eating an ice cream, and you're drinking Cokes. Well, unless you're out there PTing and burning 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day, it's a bad choice. So don't allow yourself to fall into that pit. Or if there's a part of one of the cadres on either side of you in the education pipeline, PT with them. Or find time to ensure that your diet is correct. Go to medical, go to see the dietitian if I'm telling you, you're being serious. Because upon graduation, now this is nowadays, post 9/11, pre 9/11, it was a whole different world in what I used to do. We had what was called, we were the only rating in the Navy that did just in CONUS, out CONUS, in the continental United States, out the continental United States. And a shipboard deployment counted as out CONUS. That's gone. And you never injected somebody like me into a tactical situation because of the risk, the operation security risk in case I was captured or whatever, or lost. So that's changed too. So follow through and understand that when you emerge with that rating, that CTR rating, CTN rating, CT, you fill in the blank, you're going to be a very valuable asset. And that's just your core components. It's just your core toolbox. And then you're going to go on to your first command. And if it's a ship and you're E1 to E2, 3E, or E3, congratulations, you're going to be mess cranking for 6 months. And that probably, I think, washes out more young sailors than anything. I was on the Enterprise, and fortunately, I got there as a second-class petty officer. And they had slated me to be a mess deck master at arms. But because I was the only 9105 on the ship, very quickly, battle group said, no, you're staying right here. We need you as an analyst. But we had one kid who was cranking, and he was just a miserable bag of bones and flesh because it's an incredibly difficult job. And those kids just get the hell beat out of them, because, well, let's face it, and this is, a number of years ago, the food was not that good. It was okay. If you were hungry, you ate it because you had no choice. And of course, they're going to feel the wrath of, unsatisfactory food. But you have to stick with it because the moment you become a non-commissioned officer, things change. And let me assure you, even though things are very, very vanilla milk and cookies today when it comes to making NCO, Marine Corps and Navy, it's E4, Army Air Force is E5. And the level of responsibility that your command is going to place on you goes up incredibly. My case was a little different. They made me a section supervisor as an E3 because they wanted to create one more duty section. This is my first command, which was a short command. And in order to do so, they needed a supervisor, and they selected me because I had exhibited extraordinary traits of personal leadership. And that brings me to the final part, which is personal leadership, leadership of self. Take responsibility. Take responsibility for stuff that you aren't necessarily slated with. Carry a little bit more than what you're tasked with. Your peers and your chain of command are going to see that and take note, because in today's world, we have an ever-increasing deficit of leaders of self. And it starts with physical fitness. It starts with grooming. It starts with how you carry yourself. You roll your shoulders back, you hold your head high, and you have that look about you that you know where you're going, you know where you're coming from, and you have a mission. And that's personal leadership. And it's much more than that. You foster relationships that are meaningful. You mentor people. You're available to be mentored. You're never so proud to believe that you know it all. Because the moment you go there, then there is that cliff waiting for you. You're going to sail off of it faster than a value jet going down in the Everglades. And that's an old reference, but it also dates me. It's also pretty terrible. Nonetheless, personal leadership stacks. So you have that attribute, and upon that will stack leadership of others and leadership of missions. And you're going to be taking on tasks that have ever increasing gravity. And ultimately, you will set, your attitude and how you choose to govern your mission, and how you choose to run your work center and lead your people. It's called setting the tone. In the Navy, we'd call it taking possession of the deck. It's your deck plate. It's kind of an existential thing, but it is the area of responsibility for which you've tasked. And you have to do it, because if you don't do it, you will not get the respect you desire. Now, it's different for every person, and it's also different for various missions. But the important thing to remember is that if you know what you know, and you will never lose confidence in your decisions because you are a good leader of self, and you trust yourself, and you trust your higher power, then you will prevail. Part of that is being humble, being incredibly humble, and being humble enough to go to your chain. Because sometimes you're not going to like your upline. You're not going to like the work center supervisor. You're not going to like the LPO. You might not like the chief, and so forth. But as with all things, especially in uniform, these people come and go. And you will find that there's going to be a command master chief, like I had, my very first one, who had about a 32-year career. And he was heading out. He was going to retire. Master Chief Krim, that guy's amazing. I don't know how many, he told me at one point, I've forgotten, but it was like he'd been amassed like 3 or 4 times in his younger career, busted, E4, E1, E4, E1, E3, E1, until finally he got it through his head that he had to begin to lead himself in order to be a success. And it took really getting slapped down for that attribute to make its way into his jellied parts up here. And part of the commitment that he made with the universe and the Navy and his sailors was he was going to always be available to mentor them. And fortunately, because he had paid those dues, all of his advice was valuable. All of it had value. And it's incredible leaders like that instill in their legacy, and they pass it on to you, and you're able to pass it on to those around you, that make for an amazing, amazing young person, and eventually a leader in community. And you'll find, like me, that passion never leaves you. You're always a sailor. You're always a Marine. And in my case, you're always a Crippy, although I'm always on auto mechanic too. And you will find that you will always, always be desired and wanted. Maybe not necessarily so much. I mean, for me, it's always I say 9 times out of 10, it's the technical stuff. But because you mean what you say, and you're going to follow through with it, period. That is non-negotiable. All right, got a lot of stuff that's backed up, but I tell you, I can get maybe 4 hours out of the day, and then the fatigue sets in. It's getting better with these 2 syndromes. You have to you have to power through it. It really is like being mashed in the pit, and at some point, you just I can't go any further. I cannot run any further. We've ran up 5 miles already today. I cannot do another mile. And you shoot down the naysayers in your head and say, no, we're going to do it. And we're going to do it until cardiovascularly I stop working. And that's not going to happen. It's the same way, 20 plus years advanced into the future with these syndromes. You just have to power through them. You have to power through them as best you can. For me, it's just staying in motion. And if I need to take a break and take a nap and try to recharge, I'll get what is that thing called? The Celsius Energy. They really help. Doc has me on mega doses of methylized B12, which is like liquid. And I was looking at it. It's like 5 milligram little dropper on your tongue is like 200,000%. And I do one in the morning, and man, it does it. For the first half of the day, I'm perfectly fine. And then after lunch, it really takes a dive, and I have to kind of, take a break, and then I can, pull back out of it and press forward. So that's about it. I know I kind of deviated a little bit from it, but That's the advice if you want to go into the uniformed services. It also stands to reason, and I might do a talk about police work later and police academy. Very similar circumstances. I will leave it with this. If you're interested in police work, and obviously you're going to have to go to an academy, or if you're state police, the state police academy, that I strongly suggest that you consider at least 4 years of active duty service or join the National Guard and then engage police work. You will be so much further ahead, and you will already have the framework of chain of command and in delegation and increased responsibility and personal leadership would have already been laid out for you. All right, have a great day. It's a beautiful day here in Sedona.